Hey guys, it's Alex Bertson, the Manic Scholar, back again with another Michael Teachings chart. Today we are looking at Ian Curtis, who was the vocalist of the band Joy Division, the post-punk band Joy Division. He was only in the band for a few years. It was like maybe 3 years or so. And he ended up killing himself. And then a new band formed with the original members of Joy Division without Ian Curtis, and that became New Order. So Ian Curtis, yeah, his music is the music they made was like post punk. Um, it's very emotional, kind of like dark sounding at times. Um, but he was very poetic in his with his lyrics, and there's a lot of spiritual themes going on. In the way that he wrote his lyrics. But yeah, so we're gonna look at his Michael chart. And if you guys don't know what Michael Teachings is, it's a channeled body of knowledge that talks about soul types that we have that stay the same for our whole reincarnational cycle. Also, it has soul ages, which shows where we are in our reincarnational cycle and what lessons we're learning right now. There's also goal, attitude, mode, which are overleaves that change for each life that we have that modify our focus and our way of functioning. So there's all these characteristics you can look at in a Michael chart. And there's two parts of a Michael chart. There's the essence, which is the characteristics or traits that stay the same for your whole reincarnational cycle. They're part of your essence, your soul. Um, this it stays the same for your whole reincarnational cycle, but you in other cycles, all that information will change, which I'll explain a little bit more in detail. But the overleave section on the right here, all those are the traits that are for this life only. They're modifications on the basic essence. So first I'll talk about what's in his essence, and then I'll get to his overleaves. So the most important thing to look at first is his role, which is king, which is the cardinal action axis role. Leadership is a big theme with kings, but they're also all about self mastery. Um, they're very disciplined, hardworking, action oriented. So he has that as his role. Kings, they probably in different lives had lots of positions of leadership and authority. So that's kind of the lessons they're learning throughout their cycle is how to be an authority. Um, but it'll change for every life. You're not necessarily in some position of authority in every life. Um, but he was, a strong, important member of the band for sure of Joy Division. So his kingly characteristics might have played a role there in how the dynamics of the band went. Um, so so that's his role, and his essence twin is warrior, and his discarnate. So warrior is the other action axis role. So he has two for his role and his essence twin. They're both on the action axis. So they're very productive. They get a lot done. They like challenge. That's the thing for the warriors. The warriors are about challenge, and kings are about self mastery. But the warriors are the more ordinal type, more one on one, and kings deal more with groups. So that's kind of the difference there between the two. So that's his role in Essence Twin. And then for his cadence position and cadence, they're both server. The greater cadence won't matter as much. The scholar won't be that much stronger of effect. So the next biggest thing is the server influence there. Um, Servers are very warm, nurturing, caring, loving. Um, they want to help the common good, serve the common good. So he's got some action axis with some inspiration axis. That's server inspiration. Uh, in his essence, his task companion is priest, which is another inspiration axis type. It's the cardinal type. So his task companion will help him with in the domain of priest kind of things, because that's what his task companion is priest, which is more of a spiritual, higher good kind of focus. So that might play into things a little bit because his task companion is a priest. He might be focusing on different things than if it was a different role for the task companion. So that's his task companion. His cadre entity is 3-7. I don't know a bunch of people in that. I mean, I think there's a lot. I mean, there's 1,000 in each entity. Um, Aleister Crowley is in his entity. I know that. So that's interesting. Um, his orientation is love. So that's focused on the emotional side of things, the inspiration axis. For his whole cycle, that's the domain that he's most focused on, is the emotional side of things, as opposed to the intellectual or the more physical, energetic aspect. His male female energy is 3169. So he's heavier on the female energy, which is more focused on being and creating an environment of energy and creative energy, as opposed to being in action. But he's still gonna be very action oriented because he's a king role and he has warrior essence twin. Um, but he is more on the female side energy wise. So his frequency is 36, which is on the lower end. So he's more assured with his pace of things. He moves a little slower, possibly. He doesn't have as much jam packed activity going on in his life like high frequency souls have. Um, his previous cycles is 10. That's a common amount I see, but that basically means that he lived on 10 different planets, going through the whole reincarnational cycle as a certain role. Um, so he's had his essence configurations been different 10 times. He had 10 different configurations before this one, his 11th. And for each cycle, it's about 100 to 200 lives to go through all the soul ages. So that means that for his previous cycles, he's probably had 1,000 to 2,000 lives in total as a sentient soul. So that's previous cycles. Now look at his global job and community responsibility. His global job is protection, and his community responsibility is stability. So the global job protection is a double warrior global job. It's the most warrior one. It's really focused on being productive, creating things for the world, structures and products, whatever it is that's needed, um, to ensure that the resources that are needed are in place and won't be lost. So they create a lot of stuff. They want to build a foundation for everybody else. And then the community responsibility stability is a mix of warrior and server. And it's kind of similar to protection in a way because it does have the warrior influence. But it's about putting the foundations in place to so that everybody has security in what they're doing. So they'll be like the stabilizing influence in a group setting to make things work, keep things stable and functioning correctly. Is basically what happens with that. So what's interesting about his global job and community responsibility is his warrior and server are the role influences there, and he has warrior and server in his essence as well. Warrior essence twin and server cadence position cadence. So he's particularly interested in the mix of this action axis and inspiration axis stuff, which is interesting. So that's everything in his essence. So all that stuff stays the same for his whole reincarnational cycle. Every life that he has, he'll have the same global job and community responsibility. He'll have the same role, same essence twin, same essence configuration overall. So he'll always be a king as he's incarnating on Earth. So now let's talk about his overleaves, which is the characteristics that he takes on for this life. First, to look at his soul age. So let's look at this chart here. So he's at level 1 of the mature soul age. So he's right here. So he just finished the young soul age, which is all focused on achievement, success in the outer world. And now he's stepping into the beginning of the mature soul age, which is focused on relationships. It's focused on knowing yourself internally, emotionally. It goes very deep, very introspective, reflective. Um, there's big themes of how we're connected emotionally to everybody else. So relationships are a big factor in this soul age. So he's going to learn a lot about relationships and connections to others. Um, and it's a very deep spiritual kind of focus. It's focused on the inner world more than the outer world. So the first three were all focused on the outer world, and it's difficult to go from the outer worlds to focus on the inner worlds. But that's what happens at the later soul ages, starting with mature. So mature soul age is actually the hardest one to deal with out of all of them. There's a lot of uh, difficult things that can happen during that time. People can get addicted to drugs. They can commit suicide, stuff like that, because you're confronting the inner world for the first time, where that's a primary focus. So it's interesting because Ian Curtis, when you listen to his lyrics and uh, hear his life story, what's happened with him, everything really fits with the themes of the mature soul age. It's very spiritual. He's had some difficulties in relationships, but they were very important to him. There's this really good movie about his life called Control, this black and white film. Um, that really shows what his relationship was with his wife, and then with he met somebody else too that he was really interested in. That was like that interviewed bands, and I think she was a journalist or something. Um, but yeah, so he did end up killing himself. So that's that fits for the mature soul age, dealing with the hard emotional aspects of things. Um, he also had seizures a lot, and he had to take a lot of medication, which is making things really hard for him to function properly. Um, so that was a hard aspect of things for sure. So yeah, he's mature level 1. So now let's talk about his goal, attitude, and mode. His goal is acceptance, and it's sliding to discrimination. So if you look at the key here, whatever goal, attitude, or mode you have, whatever overleaf you have, um, like for the goal, you can slide to the one that's on the same axis. So because acceptance is on the expression axis, it's the cardinal expression axis goal. You can slide to discrimination in certain moments or times in his life. So acceptance is about saying yes to life experiences, learning how to accept life and all its circumstances and whatever happens. People who have the goal of acceptance usually have a difficult life. There's challenges in different areas of life that they have to deal with and learn how to say yes to life, because you can't really control exactly what happens in your life and surrounding you and whatever happens. Excuse me. So yeah, it's learning how to accept things. Discrimination, however, is kind of the opposite. It's learning how to have better discrimination by saying no to certain experiences or people, projects, situations, stuff like that. So he has the themes of learning how to say yes to life and accept it, and say no to certain experiences, so he develops better discrimination and makes better choices. So that's kind of the theme that he had for this life as Ian Curtis. His attitude is skeptic, which is on the expression axis, but they kind of take a position of doubting things and want to investigate things to know what's actually true. So it's a very skeptical attitude. I mean, that's what it is, skeptic attitude. Um, his mode is passion, which is releasing your energy very passionately, and outwardly downward. Uh, it's a really strong expression of energy. That's on the inspiration axis. So it deals with the emotions. So that's his goal, attitude, mode. His centering is intellectual and emotional. So he filters his experiences primarily through his intellect, through his thinking process, and then that informs what his emotional state is going to be like. So that's the main two centerings that he's focused on: intellectual and emotional. His obstacles are arrogance and impatience. Arrogance is actually a fear of being judged. Um, so it can manifest in different ways. They might puff themselves up to be bigger and more important to kind of hide the fear of being judged, or they can be really shy and just try to hide out from everybody. Um, so it's learning how to accept being judged by others and not worry so much about that, what other people think about you. Um, but there could be an aspect of learning how to overcome shyness with arrogance obstacle. The impatience obstacle is a fear of missing out. So you want to be in some other situation than you're in. You don't want to miss out on the interesting things. But it can create a difficult orientation to the present moment because you're always trying to be somewhere else. So that's what impatience is. So he has a mix of arrogance and impatience. His body types are mercurial and lunar. Mercurial is on the expression axis is the cardinal expression body type, and lunar is the ordinal inspiration body type. Both of these deal with the mind a lot. Mercurial is very much about communication and expression, which really fits for him as a vocalist. As the role as a vocalist, mercurial body type can really help with that kind of domain of things and communicating, speaking. Lunar is more of a reflective, passive, introspective kind of body type. Uh, they can be mathematical and genius kind of associations with it. But yeah, that aligns with the moon. So like, if you know like Vedic astrology, Mercury and the moon are both like the planets of the mind. So for him to have body types that are both mercurial and lunar, the intellectual aspect, the mind aspect is going to be really important. His quadrant is knowledge, so when he's in a group setting, he's the one that provides the knowledge, as opposed to the power position or the support or love position. And his needs are adventure, freedom, and exchange. Um, Adventure and freedom are pretty self-explanatory. They can be different for each person what they consider adventure and what they consider freedom. An exchange is about one-on-one connections and having a back and forth of exchanging information, experiences, energies, but it's really valuing that one-on-one connection with others. Is what exchange is about. So yeah, guys, that's everything in his Michael chart. So what we can say overall is, he has a lot of action axis stuff with the king and warrior, a king role as his twin warrior. He's an entity that's aligned with the king energy, the seventh entity. He's got double warrior as his global job, but then he also has some server stuff going on. It's cadence, position, cadence, and he has server in his community responsibility. So he's a mix of action and inspiration, pretty much, in his essence. But in this life, he has most of his overleaves are either on the expression axis or the inspiration axis. So the goal of acceptance was really big, learning how to say yes to life. Um, skeptic attitude, passion mode. Passion's aligned with the inspiration axis. Um, Intellectual and emotional. Arrogance is also inspiration. Mercurial is expression. Lunar is inspiration. So very heavy in terms of his overleaves on the expression and inspiration axis kind of stuff. So he's not necessarily a typical kind of king or warrior kind of energy. For this life, he modified it to different axes, mainly expression and inspiration. And he's definitely represents the mature soul age. It seems like his life was really focused on stepping into the mature soul age and learning about that domain of things in terms of what he talked about in his lyrics, the way his life went, the struggles that he dealt with. I could see the acceptance really big there. But the mature soul age really fits for the way that he was experiencing life and the kind of perspective that he was taking on at the time, which is really heavy on the emotions, the inner world, connections with others, significant connections and relationships. So yeah, that's it. That's what we got for Ian Curtis. I don't have his birth time, unfortunately, so uh, I won't be able to do a full Vedic astrology and human design reading that's dependable because I don't have the right information for it. Um, but at some point, I might start doing some charts of celebrities where I don't know the birth time. I could look at their moon chart, putting the moon as the ascendant and reading the chart that way. So maybe I'll do that. We'll see. But I have a few more Michael charts that I want to share of other celebrities too that we don't know their birth time for. So they might be just standalone Michael chart videos and not including Vedic astrology and human design. Um, but yeah, I'm going to be posting videos from each of those three systems. Um, some people will have treatments of all three systems together, but it depends on the person based on the information that we have. And we don't have Michael charts for every celebrity channeled yet. You know, it'll take a long time to get everybody. I don't think it can get everybody. Um, but yeah, that's a process to get charts. Either you have to order from somebody who can channel or learn how to channel yourself, which is a long process, I'm assuming. Um, but that's something I want to do at some point. So we'll see. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for listening. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Manic Scholar out.